Thanks for joining, everybody. I just wanted, my name is John Cogswell. I'm on the board of the NECCF. So welcome to our virtual workshop, Optimizing CX with AI. Very excited about the conversation we're going to have today. And just a reminder that neccf.org is a nonprofit. It's a contact center CX user group. We've been around, actually next year will be our 25th year. We're very excited about that. Run by volunteers, and I always joke, you get what you pay for. So we just ask everybody to get involved, attend events, spread the word. It's a community, so we need everyone's help in driving that. And just real quick, we have 3 social events coming up. Come grab an adult beverage with us and do some networking. May 1st, we're going to be at the Narragansett Brewery in Providence from 4 to 7 p.m. On May 8th at the Mighty Squirrel in Waltham, Mass, from 4 to 7 as well. And on May 14th at Bissell Brothers in Portland, Maine from 4 to 7 p.m. as well. And these are all kind of leading up to what we call Expo season. June 5th, our 23rd annual conference and expo at Gillette Stadium, 40 or so vendors, 350 plus folks, just a great day conference that we have. Again, without further ado, I'm going to now turn things over to our moderator, Jeff Wilhelm, who's a CEO and CTO of Infused Innovations. Very excited to have Jeff leading the discussion today, and he'll take it away with the panel. So, Jeffrey, over to you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Really appreciate that. Good afternoon, everyone. Afternoon as of 4 minutes ago. I almost said good morning. Thank you all for being here today, and of course to NECCF for providing resources like this webinar to the community. Super important. We have a great panel for you today. Virginia Seavey and Dusty Lavoie from Citizens Bank. I'm sorry, from Maine Health, and Seng Palardy from Citizens Bank. Before we start the panel discussion, though, I'll be presenting first on some of the impacts of AI on the contact center space, some of the opportunities organizations are seeing around CX optimizations, and I'll just be the moderator today for that panel discussion as well. I'm going to try to talk as quickly as I can to get through the content so we can get to the panel discussion, which is I know what everyone is here today to see. And I think NECCF is also recording this, and we'll make slides available after as well. So without further ado, let me quickly introduce myself and we'll dive right in. So I'm Jeff Wilhelm. Over my career, I've worked with organizations, everything from startups to Fortune 50s, and really around leveraging data analytics and innovation to drive, whether it's customer growth through prospect and customer understanding. And I worked with organizations like Equifax, Verizon, SiriusXM, Comcast, and many others. I've also done quite a bit recently here, obviously, as CEO at Infused. I'd love to continue the conversation with folks after the call. I do have my LinkedIn there, so feel free to connect with me if you'd like to chat after. But let's dive into the meat of the conversation and talk about how AI can and is impacting customer experience in the contact center space, and then discuss the realities of this with this incredible panel that we have today. So quick overview of the next roughly hour. The bulk of the time will be focused on the panel discussion, some associated QA time, so feel free to put questions into the chat, and if they're directed to someone specific, just note who you'd like them to be directed to. I'm going to try to monitor the chat, as well as, of course, anything else that's going on, and which slide I'm on, and try to stay coherent as we go through this. As you can see, the agenda, relatively brief agenda with room for some questions and a little discussion at the end around what's next as well, which will follow nicely on our panel discussion because they're talking about some of the state-of-the-art work that's happening as well. So really briefly, I'll state the obvious here, given the audience, but AI, and when I say AI, I'm talking about the 70-year lineage of AI, not just the last, 2 to 3 years of generative AI, but AI in the broadest sense has been a transformative force in the contact center space. So when we talk about AI, it's important to remember that really it's been a driving force to do, let's say, more with less or be more efficient because of the implementations of technology within our various spaces. And our panelists are going to talk about that a bit as well. So when I say historically, I mean historically, as in really, again, everything from algorithmic AI through scoring, through machine learning, and generative AI more recently. So over the next maybe 3 or 4 minutes, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the historical impacts. That will then set us up nicely to talk about the today impacts, and then the panel, and then the future sort of state as well. Okay, so when we talk about the historical impacts of AI in the contact center space, these are just a couple of the ones that I'm sure those of us in the room or in the virtual room recognize pretty commonly. When we talk about things, we obviously speech recognition, right? Things people on this call probably are very familiar with. The basic AI speech recognition allows, obviously, for the automation of certain customer service interactions, maybe facilitating tasks like checking account balances, for example, but other similar things like that, checking order statuses, right? Things that are sort of common use cases for that. We've obviously got things like IVR systems with automated call routing, or improved call routing, we'll say. All right. It's simple decision trees informed by ML algorithms to understand, like, this person wants this department, right? That sort of stuff. And again, I'm preaching to the choir here. These are things a lot of our organizations are likely already doing. Predictive dialers, ML models that might have outbound optimization for call campaigns, right? What's the best time for this person to be contacted? How are we going to best drive, or at least minimize the disruption, increase likelihood of a positive interaction, those sorts of things. Sentiment analysis, right? Early sentiment analysis was very much, NLP based, right? Natural language processing based, to try to understand, what is this customer's emotion during the call? How can we enable a supervisor to prioritize the handling of a dissatisfied customer potentially, but ideally leading to a timely resolution and ideally a heightened satisfaction level. Similarly, email and chat automation, a little bit more modern, sort of multi-channel, multi-domain engagement, workforce management for those of us that manage, contact centers, trying to understand or where AI can try to drive better forecasting models, optimizing employee scheduling, ensuring that we have the right staffing levels based on predictive call volumes, all that sort of stuff. Performance analysis, same sort of thing, but hopefully understanding on the back end, how are my agents performing in these engagements, and then leading hopefully to better customer service experiences and better efficiency. Fraud detection, customer segmentation, right? These are things that I think traditionally have been good uses for AI and ML, both algorithmically and then more modernly. We'll talk about that in a moment. And the current uses feed very directly from those historical uses. Just as a few examples, right? Things that we're probably all deploying these days. But when we talk about all of the stuff that AI and ML has driven positive CX around in the last decade or more, we've got these new models now where we can say, let's leverage a large language model, or in some cases a small language model, depending on the use case, to drive, for example, AI chatbots, 24/7 support. In many cases, or in almost all cases, these are LLM-powered chatbots that provide hopefully more natural and context-aware interactions, hopefully improving customer experience. We can debate that on the panel. We can also hopefully support multilingual capabilities with some of these things, which, if we're a domestic or a global organization, multilingual capabilities can hopefully break language barriers and drive better engagement there as well. Certainly better potentially than having agents that have to know many, many languages, ready to take calls, and what's the surge levels around all that and everything there. I will also say real-time emotion detection during calls. While certainly agents can do this very well in many cases, real-time emotion detection allows for intervention by supervisors that can't monitor 100 or 1,000 calls at a time. I think that's come a long way recently. We do some work with that with our customers, where we're trying to understand sentiment analytics in real time. And sentiment analysis itself is a really interesting thing, because you can use LLMs to leverage the understanding of past customer interactions to then better understand current or future customer interactions as well. Predictive analysis models obviously help with forecasting around customer behavior and sentiment around churn and things like that. And there's many, many examples of where there are sort of these current AI uses and the impacts that they can drive for better CX, right? And the CX benefits are pretty obvious, I think, to a lot of us. We always strive to drive for better customer experiences, whether it's, like I said, chatbots or personalization. Multilingual capabilities have major benefits. We talked about that already. Real-time suggestions, right, including in shopping cart abandonment models, and then directly into contact center models where we can have chats and agents that sort of follow up on that sort of stuff. Sentiment analysis I mentioned before. And then, like I said, improved forecasting for those of us that are managing call centers, the ability to, understand where we can do predictive workforce analytics, or understand where we can do better planning and scheduling, predicting peak times of call volume, resource needs, that sort of stuff. So I will take a deep breath. I was talking there quickly to try to get to the exciting part of today, which of course is our panel, the part you've all been waiting for me to get to, which is, again, Virginia Seavey and Dusty Lavoie from Maine Health, and Seng Palardy from Citizens Bank. So I will quickly pass it over to them, and I'll give them an order to talk in so they're not all jumping in at the same time. But ideally, we can have each of them introduce themselves, a quick background on their role, and we will start with, we'll go Virginia, just in the same order as the screen shows, Virginia, Dusty, and then Seng. So Dusty, I'll throw it over to you if you can do an introduction of your role, background, and what you do.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I have worked at Maine Health for about 6 years, actually in the customer service billing office the entire time, but in various roles. Started out as an agent on the phone, taking those calls myself. Moved into a supervisor role, and now as an analyst. And I actually have a background in higher education and customer service, working at various contact centers over the past 20 years myself. So a lot of firsthand experience there in the agent capacity. And a couple of years ago, I was brought into the AI project at Maine Health to help identify ways that we can harness the technology to improve the customer service that our agents are providing to our patients.
Virginia?
Hi, I'm Virginia. I have been with Maine Health for 22 years, and I've had several positions within the revenue cycle. Some of my roles over the years as an analyst, I've been in billing, and I've been in revenue integrity, and most recently in customer service. When I transitioned to the customer service office, it was identified that the AI was identified as a top priority for improving the customer experience. So I was brought in to work with Dusty on the Observe.AI project.
And Seng?
Hi, everyone. Seng Palardy with Citizens. I've been here for 18 years. I am currently a business support manager for our core banking contact center. Before that, I did start off at the branches and worked my way throughout the contact center. Really enjoy what I'm doing now on our transformation and delivery and improvement team. Essentially, what my team does is we identify contact center optimization opportunities to improve the overall customer and colleague experience. So good times here.
So each of you, thank you, all three, by the way, again, for joining the panel. So all three of you alluded to sort of both your journey through the space, where you started and where you are now, but also a project or two, key initiatives, digital transformation, as you said, Seng, where you had an impact on the organization, critically important for, for the sort of work that we all, do to sort of like always be thinking about, where the challenges are, where the opportunities lie, and how we can address those. So with that note, Virginia and Dusty, maybe I'll start with you. What sort of challenges did you identify, both when you were agents or sort of through the life cycle of your work at Maine Health, and how did that lead you to, you mentioned the Observe.AI project, how'd that lead you sort of to the work that you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. I can talk a little bit about our history with the product and our relationship with it as we sought to kind of address the problems that we saw in that space. We actually, I I think it was 2023, I actually attended an NECCF forum in Massachusetts with my co-supervisor at the time. And we saw a demo that a client was giving based on her experience needing to quickly leverage some type of product to give robust data on agent performance. And this was a lot of, interactions that were needing to be identified and evaluated. So after seeing that demo, I was impressed. I mean, she talked about how, they they were able to audit, 300,000 interactions fairly quickly, based on what they had built with Observe. So, made some contacts there, talked about it with Maine Health leaders, and we began kind of the talks and the negotiations. Really, the problems that we were trying to identify were some of the universal ones that a lot of organizations find themselves faced with. The auditing process, the evaluating of agent performance was extremely manual at the time, and it was because of that extremely time consuming. It's also very limited. It relied on a lot of you know box checking and spreadsheets and a lot of just manual work. Because of that, you can only evaluate a very small percentage of agents, interactions with our customers. The feedback that you're able to give them is therefore very limited, and can't be extrapolated necessarily to their overall performance because you're only listening to and evaluating a handful of calls. Um, you know, and then beyond that, some other management problems. What are you going to do with that data? It's not all housed in one, hub. It's difficult to see trends. You have a lot of limitations on how you can use the data to actually improve the customer experience. So there were a lot of problems with that manual kind of process that we were plugging away through over the years that this product seemed to be able to directly identify and improve. So those were a lot of our original challenges that we wanted to overcome with the product and what we've been able to do so far, for sure.
Thanks, Dusty. Virginia, anything you want to add there, or is that pretty much the problem statement?
That's it.
Yeah, and it's a common one, right? I imagine saying citizens probably struggled with similar things. Certainly being able to do quantifiable, assessment at scale. The quantity of interactions I'm sure citizens deals with is quite large. Can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you were also trying to address?
Sure, absolutely. So definitely like Dusty was saying, doing an analysis on a larger scale. So for example, what we have been doing is we took a large sample size of our transcripts and fed it through an AI tool. And with that, that's where we were able to really break down the root cause of why our customers were calling. And we can definitely say, hey, our agents are dispositioning their calls, but there's room for human error, right? And they're taking calls after calls. So it's really by doing this, we're able to really understand the root cause of the customer, why they're calling, and how can we improve that experience. And that's where we learned about their intents, their sentiments. You can't do all of that. It'll be tough to get through all the transcripts, or to listen to all the calls, and then to try to build out a table. It's just a lot, right? So the tool was able to really break it down for us and chunk it out and say, all right, here's where you need to focus. And that's what we're actually doing right now, is focusing on customer intent. And there's multiple intents, and you may not get that from a disposition. So along with that, it's resolution satisfaction. There's promoters, detractors based upon the conversation between the agent and the colleague. Imagine being that manager, right? You're trying to keep track if they're resolving it, promoters, detractors, what are the intents? It's just, there's not enough time in the day. So having this AI tool has really helped us out.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, thanks for the background on it. We see organizations sort of just almost struggle a little bit between like, what should I expect in out of the box functionality for some sort of off the shelf product. Observe.AI, I think, is an example of something that was a well-designed package that met the needs of MaineHealth, or many of the needs of MaineHealth. And then, the other sort of side of that coin is, oh, well, Amazon and Azure and Google have all these capabilities, and I can stitch together, the ability to take transcripts or audio files and put them through, data pipelines and come out with sentiment scores and analytical outputs and all that, right? And there's this buy versus build and this whole capabilities gap, and how do I support this long term? Virginia, when you guys were looking at, and Dusty, you mentioned sort of finding Observe.AI through an NECCF session, which is awesome. Virginia, I'll ask you, when you were sort of either involved in the decisioning process, the implementation process, how did you, and Dusty too, how did you feel about it meeting the needs of the organization and providing you analytics? And how quick was that, I guess, time to value versus like, having to go custom build something, with a development team and things like that?
I would say, the moments were definitely valuable that you'd spoken about out of the box moments. So, we can create our own moments based on key points within a call. But as far as the out of the box moments, it did, there are certain things that we couldn't build, whether that was around negative sentiment. Some of the machine learned moments are dead air, right? If there's silence for 30 seconds to 60 seconds, we would want that tag. So maybe we could see what the reason behind that was. So that empathy, we want to make sure that people are providing empathy. So there are out of the box moments to identify if an agent is providing empathy, if they're apologizing in response to a complaint. So I feel like it was very value added to be able to stand up. And I like the idea that, just speaking about moments a little bit more, there are machine learned moments, but we can also create our own moments based on key points within the call. And we can combine them. We can combine a machine learned moment with, something that we customize. So very helpful to identify key points in the call.
So as you were going through that, I tossed up a slide. Dusty or Virginia, do you want to talk a little bit about sort of this view of the way things are sort of managed within the platform and what insights it drives? And then Seng, I'm going to ask you a similar question about how you guys sort of visualize and manage sort of the insights that come out of the work that you guys are doing as well. So Dusty and Virginia, do you mind talking a bit to the screenshot that's up?
Sure. I can start. With that. So we have that visualization, and as you can see, there's a number 1. So I just want to point your eyes to the top. That is our visual player, and our moments play a factor in our visual player. So as you can see, we can kind of see the back and forth communication between the agent and the customer. So the blue would be the agent and the purple would be the customer. We can kind of see the back and forth discussion. All those tags that you see above and below, those are moments that we've created, or they're out of the box moments, which is really helpful. So when we go in, we look at a call interaction, if something, we're looking for something specific, we can actually select one of those moments and go right into that portion of the call and listen to it. So again, moments, we can create them on our own. Some of them are out of the box, but it's very useful. This screen also, it has the ability to download the call if you need to send it for review. The nice thing also, you can't see on this particularly, but underneath the visual player is the actual transcript. So when you select a moment within that, it'll bring you to the spot right in the transcript where the conversation is happening. So you not only can hear it, you can see it.
Yeah, and then continuing down kind of the flow here. The middle whole section is this coaching overview section that happens after the call has been completed and it's gone through its analysis and evaluation, where you can actually bring up information for each agent or group of agents. You can select a particular time frame to view their performance across that period. For this example, you can see on the left there where this agent has 39 total evaluations for the time period that was selected. It's broken down by the type of form or evaluation that's used, and then shows their average performance in this kind of green circle that's there, the 96%, the 93%. Actually just gives that visual visualization of performance over time for that particular agent or set of agents. So from a management perspective, that really gives you a good sense of somebody's performance across time. Again, down below a little bit further, you can see in the evaluation forms section where you have those little squares with the colors. That's that heat map that actually allows us to see somebody's performance across different types of interactions, inbound calls, outbound calls, different types of calls if you have that in your contact center, and you can see where they perform. You know, the green is the number of passes that based on the parameters that you set as an organization, what is a pass. The purple are the needs improvement scores, and the reds are the considered fails. So you can really get a high level sense of somebody's performance at a glance. And then dig in deeper if you need to do that, to look at their areas of opportunity, which is number 3 that Virginia can touch on for us.
Yeah, so that at the bottom of the screen, there is areas of opportunity. It's broken out between, we have manual evaluations and auto QA evaluations, and Dusty will talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But what's really nice about the areas of opportunity is it identifies the specific questions that might be being missed within a call. Or within calls, and it tells you what agents, you can do this for every agent. You can break down maybe where they need to focus, their area of opportunity, but it also will allow you to see where their successes are as well. One of the nice things about this area is you can basically link into the evaluations where the questions were missed, but then also link into the call interaction. So it really is, you get direct connection right from this screen down to the detail, and it's very helpful for coaching.
And then the last bit, number 4 there, talks about the different types of forms that we have. We still do some manual evaluations because of the nature of the information. You know, we're a healthcare group, so it's a lot of protected health information, you know, PHI, medical diagnoses, things like that, that Observe can't have access to. So we get to determine what level of access the product has. And for all those other types of questions on the right, the auto QA evaluations, those are all our automated evaluations that happen on every phone interaction. You know, did they say the opening script correctly? Were they friendly? Did they explain things well? Did they apologize when they needed to? Did they ask if there are any more questions at the end? All of those things that we need to happen on every one of our interactions are on the auto QA form that's done by the product itself in an automated way. It gives us all that data on hundreds and hundreds of calls for each person. And then our manual evaluations on the left go in very deep to each account. Did you work that account correctly? Did you provide the right resolution? Did you give the right information based on what the question was? And because of the sensitivity of the information, that's not available to Observe. So we do still have to do some manual evaluations, but at that point, it augments what you're able to get from the auto QA, which evaluates every single interaction. So dependent on your industry, you know, you can decide which questions do I want the product to evaluate, which questions do I need to leave to a subject matter expert, an auditor, an analyst, a supervisor to evaluate in more detail. And then you can really harness the information that you get from both types of evaluations, or more if there are more that you have, to be able to use that data and do something productive with it to help those agents on those phone calls, help provide a better customer experience.
And Dusty, I think both you and Virginia, I think answered Greg's question sort of organically as you were going through it. But I'll read it just so for everybody, and if you want to add any comments to it, especially maybe explaining some of the coaching outputs that come from the insights. And then I'm going to toss it to Seng to talk for a bit too. Greg's question was, what kind of automation and coaching can be triggered from these auto QA evals? Or is that manual process to coach? And I know there's that create coaching session button up there too. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that briefly.
Yeah, so the coaching is, if I'm understanding the question, it is manual. But what's nice is we use this screen to identify that area that may need some coaching. We can create a coaching session. And what's nice is we can actually attach evaluations. So if we identify 10 audits that were done that maybe had an issue with a certain area of a call, we can attach that to the coaching session. So when a manager meets with someone, they can have that discussion. Again, they can link right to the call. They can show them the example. You know, it's really a direct link to what's going on within the call, which is really it's helpful. Sometimes it's great, you know, that someone can hear their call and maybe see, right? And it goes for successes as well. When someone has a great call, you could have a coaching session on that and attach, you know, that call interaction.
And the other
Greg?
part about the coaching, I just want to add real quick, is that you can use that information to identify, oh, look, this is not an agent specific issue. This particular question is missed X% of time across the whole team. You know, maybe identify something that we need to work on as an entire group, that we could all do better, for example. So that really helps as well from a coaching perspective, is to find those commonalities.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And I hope that answered Greg's question. Greg, feel free to throw another question in the chat if that missed the mark for you. Seng, I wanted to throw it to you too and ask, you know, so citizens, you know, massive call volume, I'm sure, likely a lot of places where there's been long use of things like IVRs and other techniques to sort of drive specific interactions into specific areas, like, you know, checking account balance or something like that. But what sort of insights are you capturing and driving with the way that you've deployed AI within the contact center, similar to, you know, some of the stuff likely that MaineHealth is seeing? But how are you, how are you?
We lost your audio, Jeff. Did you guys, everybody else lose audio?
Yes.
Okay.
Saying it's John. Why don't you, while Jeff's trying to figure that out, why don't you go ahead and just talk about, you know, your environment and what he was sort of teeing up there.
Sure,
Thanks.
of course. All right. So, so what we've done is, as I mentioned earlier, we've been analyzing our customer transcripts using the AI tool, and with that, what it's provided us is, you know, kind of what we call like a ground zero level, right? Level L0, which is what products are driving the call volume. Is it checking? Is it credit card? You know, so we kind of can break it down in that way, where we can potentially look at the product and work with our product partners to say, hey, you know, this is why customers are calling in. But then it's also boiled down to the intent. And then from there, the root cause. So we just keeps on breaking it down a little bit more to help us better understand why our customers are calling in. Along with that, is the colleague transferring the call, right? Because we all know that if a call is transferred, that decreases our NPS. You know, is there any blockers? So there's a lot in this analysis that we've been able to tune to, and be able to just use that information to then, for our transformation team, be able to then go after, you know, what makes sense for our contact center and for our customers. So that's how we've been able to use AI.
Let's test my audio. Is it working now?
It is.
Okay, awesome. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties, apparently. Okay, so thank you, Seng, for that. So, you know, you guys have gone through these implementations of, you know, different solutions, but with the same general end goals in mind, right? Which is, you know, drive performance within the contact center, improve customer experience, and drive engagement, right? All the things that we hope to you know, sort of, you know, improve with these sorts of deployments. What's next on the roadmap? Like, what other areas of opportunity still exist, or what challenges still exist that you hear from customers or agents or managers within the space? I'll start with you, Saying, like, what's next? Like, what still exists as challenges?
Geez, what's next? There's a lot. So we do have, you know, we've done roundtables with our agents, you know, and really try to really get to like what's their friction point with the customers. And a lot of it has been all around empowerment, right? So that's where we take the analysis and say, all right, does it match up to what they're saying, and how can we improve this? So for example, we've upskilled our main servicing agents to be able to assist in online banking as well. Previously, we would, transfer them over to the SMEs, and there's hold time, and it's just sometimes just a really simple question as to like, why am I locked out? So we upskilled our agents to be able to reduce that transfer rate, to reduce that friction and hold time. And our customers, we've actually, I pulled up the voice of the customers, and customers were like, oh, you were able to help me out the first time. They were great. They understood what I was talking about, and they were able to provide assistance and unlock me and get me back into my account. Whereas before it was, let me get you over to a SME. So now they're the SME. So we're really big on empowerment here.
Dusty and Virginia, same general question, but what future enhancements are on the roadmap for Maine Health, and how is, whether it's Observe.AI or other sort of tools within the arsenal, how are you hoping to implement those over the next 6 to 12 months?
I can take the first one. We do have a couple enhancements that we're working on right now. It is through Observe.AI, and one of them is real-time assist agent. And what's nice about this is when a call comes in to an agent, they'll have a window that pops up, and it can provide what their touch points should be, just to make sure that they are capturing those while they're speaking. So if it's a greeting that we expect that, that they need to provide demographics, it kind of will tick down the list of the touch points that they need to have. But one really great thing that we're testing right now is a dynamic prompt. So if a subject comes up within the call that's related to healthcare, that they may need some further clarification on, something that they would right now go look up in the documentation, we can actually set a dynamic prompt to give them a link to go straight to that topic and be able to discuss that with them. So it's really a great thing that we see coming. In addition to that, there's also some alerts that we can put on there. So if there is silence for too long, if maybe they're speaking too quickly, just things to assist the agent while they're having the call, and to give a better customer experience. So that's one of the things coming.
And the other one that we're developing right now, we're in a testing pilot phase. In addition to Agent Assist, is called Auto-Summarization, where the Observe.AI tool will provide the agent with an automatic summary of what was discussed on the call, which is important for our notations when we, append an account with what we're doing and what we talked about and what the next steps are, because agents, as we all know, have a lot of conversations in one day, and there's a lot of room for error there. There's a lot of room to omit unintentionally, a whole aspect of the conversation that you had maybe in your note. And the auto summary will allow the agent to review the suggested summarization, make changes to it, remove things, add things, move things around, modify it in any way they see fit, and then use that for their notation of what the summary of the call was. And so that's something that's exciting for the agent, because it allows them to focus on and be present in the conversation without necessarily having to keep notes or remember all the components of the conversation. And later they can review it and make changes and post it. And really allows them to just focus on that actual interaction with the patient. So that one's exciting. That's happening right now. And those are some real-time enhancements that we're working on, because the evaluations and the coaching feedback and all of that we're doing now happens after the fact. And so we want to be able to use the tool to give the agents something they can use right then in the moment to improve that phone call while you're on it. And provide the document that you need, the workflow you need, the reminders about demographics, whatever it is that you need, the auto summary to help you just give that better experience right then and there, and improve in real time.
So, whenever we talk about technology, any type of technology implementation, right, there's always the question of acceptance or adoption, right? It's like, you give someone a tool, we all think it's going to be amazing, of course, right? We've spent all this time working on it and thinking about it and implementing it, hopefully in pilot groups and gathering feedback and all the things we go through, right? But sometimes when the tool is out in the world, sometimes adoption or acceptance of the tool can be challenging, especially acceptance these days whenever people hear AI, right? Or AI in healthcare or AI in financials. It's like there's this sometimes anxiety from the either customer perspective or even sometimes the agent perspective, like, oh, is it going to take my job, like that kind of thing, right? I'll start with you saying, like, how was the sort of implementation to adoption acceptance sort of curve that we all think about at Citizens, and then I'll ask the same question to you, Dusty, and Virginia.
Sure. Something I forgot to mention in regards to, what are we working on, for the future of the contact center is we actually have been using agentic AI, which is like an automation to complete tasks on behalf of our colleagues. And we rolled out logging into multiple applications at one click of a button. Sounds great, right? Because our agents, I don't know how it is at Maine Health, they sit down and they start, logging in all different applications. And we were like, hey, we built an automation for you. Try it out. We're still working on it. It's great. They're able to tailor what they can open up. However, some are like, oh, I can do this quicker, or I don't need as many screens. So the adoption rate hasn't been there. We think it's pretty cool. Like you said, Jeff, right? Something we worked hard on, but then we're continuously refining it and getting the feedback in regards to that. So it's been a challenge, but we're working through it, and we're still building more meaningful automations, such as branch locator, so that way they don't have to ask the customers so many questions. What street, what zip code, and where are you at? And our agents, they're I'm in Rhode Island and my customer can be in Maine, and I'm not familiar with Maine too much. So they could say, oh, it's, next to the Stop and Shop or something. And I'm just like, don't know. So if we could try to automate that for our colleagues, it'll be a smoother and more efficient call for them. So that's kind of where we're going with that. We're not giving up, and just really finding meaningful, valuable automation opportunities for the colleagues. So that way they say, all right, it's not bad at all. They'll be able to be more open to adopting additional automations.
We've seen something similar where sometimes it's the least interesting but most impactful, like agentic workflows, for example. If you can take something that somebody does 100 times, even if it's only 10 seconds, right? It's still 100 times that they're doing it, and then turn it into some sort of automation or workflow or task that happens sort of asynchronously or whatever it might be. And we've seen a lot of value in that as well. And it's often like the least sexy ones. It's like the ones that are just like repeatable business things that often have the biggest impact. So Dusty and Virginia, I'll ask you the same question around adoption and acceptance of the tooling. I imagine it was well accepted and adopted. It seems like the coaching especially drives, sort of positive benefits, but what was the experience like?
Yeah, I think we definitely experienced some pushback in the beginning. Like you said, certain phrases spark certain kind of connections for people cognitively. But I think, it was in the way that we positioned it. We did let them know, your skepticism about any kind of product like this is natural, and it's actually welcome, and it's good because it allows us to ask the right questions and to remember that the product is just that, and it can be modified and refined. So like their feedback throughout the implementation of this was central so that we would be able to make the right moves. You can't just go in blind and make the decisions that you think that they're going to be finding useful. So I think that mentality was a good way to remind them that it's okay to ask questions or to be skeptical about something, and putting it in the historical framework also. Certain things that happened throughout the Industrial Revolution were always met with skepticism, right? Any sort of technological advancement, anything like that, it's natural for that to happen. So It allows us to work through that, to discuss it transparently, and to come up with ways that we can make the product work for us rather than the other way around, make your work more meaningful. You know, that low-hanging fruit that we're able to automate is great, because nobody wants to rattle off balances all day and take, you know, rote payments and things that a machine can do. We want our interactions with our patients to be satisfying for the agent as well, feel like they're truly making a difference in somebody's life, which they're able to do with the advent of some of the automation and some of the feedback we're able to give them. So the positioning of it, I think, was central to how it was adopted.
Yeah, and well, and there was a comment in the chat too, and I think it aligns well with both one of the things you mentioned as on the roadmap, right? The ability to have this real-time sort of knowledge-based pop, or the ability to have more curated content that's available to the agent in real time. And the comment I think that Greg added too was that, you know, the ability for RAG, right, retrieval augmented generation, or large language models in general, to make sense of a huge corpus of information and find knowledge relationships, right? Building these vector math sort of relationships between concepts is hugely valuable and can happen in real time, you know, in ways that just were never possible before, or were strictly keyword based before, which is hit or miss in many cases, right? Context matters. So I appreciate, Greg, the comment that you threw in the chat there, and the question right before it, which I think is like the ability for real-time transcription to drive language understanding, the context, and then the knowledge lookup as well. The comment about LLMs, I think, is really relevant too. I'm going to quickly jump to, and I know we're getting close on time, I just in the news in the last week, I think it was in the last week or two, was the Wells Fargo example. We're talking, you know, 245 million interactions through this very creatively named chatbot named Fargo, very, very creatively named a chatbot. But what was interesting to me was the mix of LLM, large language model, and SLM, small language model, where the SLM was used to prevent, or hopefully prevent, the disclosure of sensitive private information, versus the large language model being used for contextual understanding. I thought that was really, really interesting. You guys probably know even more about this one than I do, or may know more about this one than I do. So I will ask the question to the group. Any perspectives on sort of, one, the development and delivery of this, and two, the 245 million interaction number, that at least that's being quoted. I'll leave it open to the group to give a minute of perspective on it if anyone has one. Otherwise, I'll transition to the closing remarks.
I want to say I'm definitely impressed with the amount of interactions. They more than doubled their projection. Truly impressed by that. And I want to say that it's to have that makes it very easy for anyone of any age to be able to use, you know, the technology, right? You don't have to be savvy. You don't have to know how to, you know, mobile app, you know, signing on and navigating, right? You're speaking, and I'm gonna throw my in-laws under the bus here. You know, they're not that savvy, and they were like, "Oh, called my cable company," and I was able to change my plan without even speaking to an agent. And I was like, "Oh, how great is that to hear?" And it was just like it was able to assist them, and they felt comfortable. They were proud of themselves that they didn't have to speak to an agent. So, you know, I just really thought about that when I thought about Wells Fargo.
Yeah, yeah. And I think one of the things that's really interesting too is, like, if you ask people, you know, would you rather have the ability to call 24/7 and do something self-service? Like, yeah, people like that. Would you want to talk to an agent 24/7? A lot of times people say, I'd rather call during business hours and get someone who can absolutely answer my question as efficiently as possible, understands what I'm asking about, rather than somebody who's reading from a script, you know, at 2 in the morning when I happen to call. I find that a lot of these tools, though, now bridge the gap between those two sentiments of being able to provide actionable, knowledgeable agents any time of day because of the context of the conversation. And I imagine that people that you know, 245 million interactions is no small feat. So to be able to, you know, service users at any time with an app, hopefully reliably 245 million times, doubling their projections, as you said, was, I thought, very, very interesting. Okay, so we're in the final stretch here for everyone. I want to wrap up just by leaving everybody, and thank you again, Dusty, Virginia, and Seng so much for your insights and all of the work that you're doing on behalf of Maine Health and citizens. But like, what's next? What's next for our organizations and everyone on this call's organizations? I think the space, I think we all know the space is evolving really, really rapidly. I think the integration of AI and ML, obviously is going to enhance CX, looking forward. And I threw a couple examples in here of where I think things are going, and I'm sure we could all debate these. And we could have, as Jonathan said at the beginning, all the social events that are coming up. Let's do that. Let's go to them and debate these things. I have found just in the last 6 to 12 months that the real-time sentiment detection has gotten much more accurate, I'm sure because it's being trained on many more interactions. One of the things that I find really interesting is the hyper-personalized experience, the ability to have sort of the persona of one or the segment of one. Like, how long have we all talked about, creating these narrow segments of personas to best service the user at the time of the interaction, and knowing that now we can identify the user to one, like their segment is narrow to them rather than this cohort of, oh, that zip code, or oh, that income band, or that product set, or whatever it is. I think that is driving a lot of change in the space right now. Certainly the deployment of fully autonomous agents capable of resolving complex queries, right? You talked about agentic workflows, internally facing and externally facing. Seng, I think you talked about those for a minute. The ability to deal with complex queries either without human interaction or with minimal human interaction, I think is incredibly beneficial, certainly to the customer experience and the feeling of accomplishment, or the ability for them to feel like they're actually, getting value out of the time that they're spending on these calls. Proactive customer engagement, I think, is incredibly beneficial. Continuous advancements in that is really useful. Fraud prevention and detection, I know, Seng, certainly in the work that you guys do, medical work at Maine Health, fraud detection is going to be really, really important. And so many more of these like multi-channel interactions, like somebody tagged, Maine Health in a tweet and then called in and then opened a ticket, through some other channel. These multi-channel interactions, tying them together, I think is only going to become much more advanced, I think, as time goes on. So collectively, I think there's this real moment that we're all sort of sitting in right now and trying to push our organizations forward. We could talk on and on about some of these and the need, of course, for regulatory compliance in all of them, especially in financial and healthcare, governance and regulatory compliance, critically important. But I will just say thank you to everybody who attended today. Thank you again to the panelists. Thank you to the NECCF for sponsoring conversations like this. Make sure you enter your email on the website, follow on LinkedIn. The live events page is incredibly useful. And I will remind everyone there's a June 5th event at Conference and Expo at Gillette. And there's a discount code, a 50% off discount code for everybody that's on the call today. If you enter 2025 friend, no spaces, you can get a 50% discount to attend the 23rd annual Conference and Expo, which is at lovely Gillette Stadium. So thank you all to everybody again so much, Jonathan, NECCF, for holding these sorts of events, and hopefully see everybody on June 5th and before those at the social events that are listed on the NECCF event page on the website. I'll stick around for a few minutes after this and after the call in case anyone has additional questions. But thank you again very much. I'll monitor the chat as well. Dusty, Virginia, Seng, thank you so much for your insights today. Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.